Minnesota Vikings are this close to winning the NFC North, but can they overcome the demon that is playing at Seattle? It's going to be a really tough matchup. And even though Geno Smith is hurt, he's probably going to play. So what does that mean? How can the Vikings end up getting the win over the Seattle Seahawks? And how can they win the NFC North? We're going to talk all about it. Strap in for another episode of The Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, he is in the top left corner, and his name is Producer Dave, or as I like to call him, the English schoolboy with the nice little cap. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. We had a great NFC North Roundup show, Who Will Be King, earlier today. I hosted it, so it's on our channel, Vikings First and SKOL. We had a blast. The banter was flying, and our Chicago Bears rep from Fans First Sports Network, from the Frustrated Chicago Sports Fan channel, and you wonder why, that's truth in marketing, went off on an absolute rant that was beautiful after we demolished them this last weekend on Monday night. It was beautiful.
Hell yeah. Go check that out when you're done watching this show. Dave, we've got a friend of the show, Chris Thompson, in the chat saying that we should start a show called The Fake Forno Show, where we clip together things that he says are factually inaccurate. I don't know if he knows this, but I've never said anything wrong in my entire life. Everything I've ever said is correct. You can ask my wife for clarification, and Chris knows my wife very well. He will probably end up texting her. And of course, I am being 100% facetious. Everybody says wrong.
Sarcasm. Mm-hmm.
If you have a 100% hit rate in this business, it means you have had one take and it was correct. It is very hard to be right in this business.
Either that or you're a time traveler.
Oh, hey, I don't know if you know this, but my name is Marty McFly.
Oh, okay.
No, Michael J. Fox does rule, but I'm not Marty McFly. And what else rules is your Minnesota Vikings are this close to being able to win the NFC North. Now, it's a little bit complicated, but it's also very simple. You win against Seattle. You win against the Packers. You win against the Lions. You will be NFC North champions. That simple. If the Lions stumble against the Bears and the 49ers, the Vikings can just win their next two. Easy win. And then week 18, guess what, Dave? They can rest players.
Well, it depends whether they're playing for the number one seed or not.
That is also a good point. Right now, the Vikings, if they win out, they will be the number one seed. And here's how that works. So you have multiple tiebreakers. The one that will end up going down is going to be, because the Vikings and Eagles will probably end up tied when it comes to common opponents, which is the third tiebreaker, because they'll have the same record. And when you go to common opponents, they're going to have the same winning percentage. The Vikings beat the Falcons. The Eagles didn't. The Eagles beat the Rams. The Vikings didn't. So now you have to go to strength of victory. Here's how simple strength of victory is. What is the record of every team you beat?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Higher winning percentage is a more difficult schedule. Therefore, you win. And right now, the Vikings are I think 5 or 6 games up. So, look, they're in a good spot. They're in a very good spot. Now, and it's going to get even better for the Vikings because their final 3 games are against the 8-6 Seahawks, the 10-4 Packers, and the 12-2 Lions. Conceptually, it's a very easy path as far as simplicity. In reality, winning all those 3 games is going to be hard as hell. All 3 are very good teams. And the only one you draw at home is the Green Bay Packers. And week 17 against the Packers has been a house of horrors for the Minnesota Vikings the last 2 years. 41-17 loss at Lambeau in 2022. 33-10 loss at US Bank Stadium New Year's Eve last year. There's no guarantee. There is no give me.
No, we probably have the toughest 3 games out of the 3 teams that are at 12-2. The Lions, us, and the Eagles. We have the toughest schedule going out in the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. We do have a very tough schedule the last 3 games. And let me tell you, I am excited about what could happen here. Very excited. So this is going to be a really interesting game. Mainly, Dave, because the Vikings have had a house of horrors when playing against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. The only time they have won recently against the Seahawks was when Russell Wilson and company came to US Bank Stadium September of 2021, and the Vikings got the win by 10. They have not been able to
include preseason.
No, it does not include preseason. Preseason games don't matter. They matter, but not in the win-loss column. So the last time that the Vikings ended up getting a win, it was on the back of a guy named Chester Taylor. 2006. Oh boy, 2006 Minnesota Vikings. That was not necessarily the greatest team in the world. That Minnesota Vikings team in 2006 finished 6-10, the first year of Brad Childress. And they were able to continue to build off of that 2006 season and get a almost Super Bowl berth in 2009. We know how that ended up. But that was the last time that they had won in Seattle. They came close during the pandemic, 2022. They were up by 6, 4th and 1. Alexander Madison reads the hole wrong. Go figure. And he can't make the yard to gain. Seattle comes back, drives down the field, gets the win. I remember being I was vacationing of all places in South Padre Island, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And being in South Padre, my wife's aunt and uncle own 2 restaurants on the island.
Really?
And we were Tequila Sunset, and I don't remember the other one, but that one is way more established than Tequila Sunset. I recommend you go check it out. Joe does a great job running those restaurants. Those places are cool, and they're right on the water. It rocks. So when we're having this conversation about the Vikings kind of being able to win the game, that 2020 game was, at least I could have beer. Let's put it that way. So let's kind of take a look at the Seattle Seahawks team, Dave. It's weird. And I mean that in the best possible way. It's a weird football team. The Seahawks are decent. They, offensively, it all depends on how well their offensive line plays, because their offensive line is bad. And Dave, I told this to Judd and AJ when we were recording Meat and Potatoes earlier today. If you think that the Vikings offensive line on the interior is bad, this will make you praise God that we have the interior that we do. It's atrocious in Seattle. Oluwatimi is a discount Garrett Bradbury. Laken Tomlinson is way past his prime. He was a first-round pick of the Lions in 2015 and resurrected his career with the 49ers after the Lions chose to move on from him. And then you also have a rotating door. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, you can stop that right now.
It's, you know what? It's been a long day. I woke up at 10:45. It's been a very long day. That Anthony Bradford was the starter, and then they have rookie 3rd-round pick Christian Haynes, who I was very high on coming out. And then they also have played 6th-round pick Satoa. He's a rookie from Utah. I can't remember his last name. And it's interesting to kind of take a look at all of these different factors, because that offensive line is the reason why the Seahawks offense has not been humming, because Geno has no time. We all watched the game on Sunday night where the Packers pretty much dismantled the Seahawks in the first half. And then the Seahawks made some really, really impressive adjustments, but they still weren't able to get it taken care of. They still weren't able to go over the top. And what was really interesting kind of looking at all encompassing was the adjustments in the second half were to kind of try and mitigate the issues of the offensive line. Well, then Geno Smith gets hurt and it doesn't even matter. And Sam Howell on 19 dropbacks only had 5 completions. He was just atrocious. He couldn't do much of anything. It was basically just lights out because they were able to get pressure so quickly. And the offensive numbers, like efficiency-wise, reflect that, Dave. They're 22nd in EPA per play in neutral situations. Success rate, they're a little bit better at 15th. Dropback EPA, they are 20th. Success rate on those dropbacks, they're 14th. So rush EPA, I'm trying to find where they're at, because you don't look for words, you look for logos. Seahawks are 30th in rush EPA and 24th in success rate. So basically they're having successful plays, but they're not getting as much explosiveness out of them as you would like. And what is that? Is that the injury report?
That's the injury report.
I should look that up on my end. Yeah, this just came out. I got the email right as we were about to start recording the show, so we'll kind of go over this. This is just the original, the first day. The only players not practicing are Fabian Moreau, Pat Jones, and Jalen Redmond. Redmond suffered a concussion, was placed in concussion protocol. I don't know if they've officially said he suffered a concussion, but being in the protocol is basically the same thing. You have to pass the protocol in order to get out.
Right. This is listing Pat Jones is limited.
Oh, Pat Jones is limited? Okay. I misread that. Pat Jones being limited, he's had knee issues for a few weeks. He missed the game. He returned last week. So having him miss the game would stink, but Gabe Murphy filled his role to perfection. And they did not miss a beat with Murphy in there. So that's worth noting here. Brian O'Neill was limited. Harrison Phillips was limited, both with knee injuries. David Questenberry was limited with an oblique. Harrison Smith was limited with a foot. Stephon Gilmore was a full participant with his hamstring, and Josh Oliver, full participant with the wrist. It's worth noting that Josh Oliver's ankle injury is not listed on the report, which is great to see. And the Seahawks have a laundry list of guys, including Tyler Lockett. He didn't practice because it wasn't injury related, so that's worth noting. Zach Charbonnet did not practice with an oblique. DK Metcalf did not practice with a shoulder. Oluwatimi didn't practice with a knee. Jaron Reed did not practice for rest. Same with Laken Tomlinson. Kenneth Walker with his calf is still not practicing. Like, they are beat up. They are beat up, and I think you can take advantage of some of these guys because they are as beat up as they are. Fignut says an interesting take. I'd like to hear a little bit more of what you're thinking here. You'd almost rather see Gabe Murphy with more snaps. Well, part of the issue here is Gabe Murphy isn't on the active roster. Speaking of the active roster, the Vikings had Andre Carter II sniped from their practice squad earlier today. When the Las Vegas Raiders put Max Crosby on injured reserve, and they signed Andre Carter II to the active roster. So he's no longer a member of the Minnesota Vikings. Kind of stinks, but what can you do?
It is what it is. Hopefully he gets some playing time in Vegas. Helps develop. But our edge room was full anyways. So.
And he was passed up by this year's UDFA's Bo Richter, who is on the active roster and playing well, by the way, and Gabe Murphy, who is on the practice squad for now, but he will probably be on the active roster next year. probably making Pat Jones II expendable in that sense because of the guys we have behind him and the role that Jones plays. I think that's worth mentioning here. Delton asked the question, why are we always playing the Seahawks in Seattle? So I'll explain it this way. This is the game every 6 years that we play in Seattle, where they do the rotating thing. Every 3 years, you play a team from a division in your conference. And that will either be a home game or away game. So 2021, the game I mentioned where the Vikings beat the Seahawks at home, that was that game. This year, it's an away game. The other games are, I don't know how the algorithm picks it, but it might just be kind of random. I haven't heard, but like
where they place is part of it.
Yeah, well, it's the where you place that's consistent. But whether it's a home game or away game has not been consistent because Delton kind of brings up the point where we've been playing in Seattle a ton. I don't know how the schedule algorithm works there. I might have to try and look into that. I haven't been able to figure that piece out because the Vikings have played an abnormal amount of times against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. And I think it was more of a coincidence than anything. So that's a good thing. What else, Dave?
Oh, on Andre Carter, T-Bass says he's a practice squatter. Who cares? I find it interesting that he's the, latest second lieutenant that doesn't stick. Mm-hmm. And our buddy Ted Glover said today if he had to land nav his way to Las Vegas, he'd end up in Manitoba. It's a military joke. Those that are in the Army know.
Well, as you can tell, my hairstyle is 100%
not
Army approved. No, it is not. I don't look good with that kind of short hair. Absolutely not. So let's kind of talk about some more things with the Seattle Seahawks. They are just an interesting bunch, Dave. They bring in Mike McDonald, who has really done wonders with this defense. I'll pull up some of the numbers here as we kind of talk, because one thing that they did that was a little bit not surprising, but they gave Leonard Williams a big boy contract. It was like 3 years, $65 million. Like they're paying him over $20 million a year, and he has been an absolute wrecking ball force on the interior of that defensive line. It's been really impressive to kind of watch how they've kind of gone about their business. The Seahawks are 12th in EPA per play allowed at 0.002. And in success rate, they're allowing successful plays, but they're not allowing explosives. They are 22nd in success rate. You can move the ball short on these guys, but you're not going to be able to go over the top. They have some good corners, Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen. They have some good safeties. Julian Love just got a contract extension before the season. Ernest Jones, the fourth, being in that linebacker room, has been excellent. There have been a lot of really, really impressive things when you talk about this Minnesota Vikings team. And I think it's been great. I think it's been awesome to see. And I think when you talk about the Minnesota Vikings being able to exploit some of these things, I think the biggest thing, Dave, is they're going to have to block.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to find a way to block these guys. Because not only is it Leonard Williams, you've got Boye Mafe, who's having a good year at edge. Chenna Nwosu, Leonard Williams on the interior. Jaron Reed, who was a non-participant in practice, but he's been a really good nose. Byron Murphy, the second, the 16th overall pick in this draft, has been good. They know how to get pressure and they know how to move the middle. Can you stop them from doing that? That's going to be a huge point of emphasis in this game, is being able to block. And this might be a CJ Ham game, Dave. This might be a game where CJ Ham has to step up and play a lot on third down to be able to help pass block. And then you just have to trust that Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison can win in man coverage, because you're going to see a decent amount of that with Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon in coverage. If you can do that and then allow these guys to take advantage on the outside with some of these more downfield routes, that's an easy path to victory. Because the one thing I don't see the Seahawks being able to do is running the football in the Minnesota Vikings defense, especially when Charbonnet is probably out or Kenneth Walker. Right now, neither of them are practicing. That's bad. Both of those guys are good football players. You don't have either of them, they're not going to be able to run the ball. George Holani is fine, but he's a UDFA from Boise State who actually was taking away carries from Ashton Genty last year, which kind of wild to think about that. But Holani was a really good college running back. He just wasn't Ashton Genty good. So I think when you're talking about the Minnesota Vikings offense, they're going to have to block. And is that interior, which has struggled recently, Dave, Blake Brandel, Dalton Reisner, and Garrett Bradbury, are they going to be able to handle that assignment? That, to me, that's going to be the biggest thing to watch.
Gotcha. Now, on the flip side, we have DeMarco Bryant, who I believe is obviously a Seahawks fan, asks, who do you think can shut down Metcalf on your defense? I don't think it needs to be per se shut down as in defense. I don't think it's an individual as it is the whole defense.
Yeah. I think it's less about DK Metcalf, and you got to stop Jackson Smith and Jigba, because they've done a really good job of utilizing him on all three levels of the defense and getting him in space to where he can create after the catch. DK Metcalf is DK Metcalf, but he is also relatively limited. And here's what I mean by that. He is big, he is fast, he is physical. He is not agile. So he's not going to turn corners quickly. He's not going to stop and accelerate quickly out of that. Not going to go in and out of breaks. You're going to have to figure out how to be able to kind of handle some of that. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do to try and slow him down. I genuinely don't know if you have to worry about that. It's quite an interesting case.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best route to go is to get, if Stephon Gilmore's healthy, put Gilmore on him and be physical. Get him from, like, just get a hand on his shoulder and don't let him get his forward momentum rolling. And then, like, he's not going to just absolutely destroy you in zone coverage. So I'm kind of talking in circles, but I don't think the one thing you have to really worry about with DK is him taking you deep. The way the Vikings play defense, I'm not worried about him taking us deep. They just don't get beat deep. The only time that happened was the Titans game where they got Nick Westbrook-Akine, where Josh Metellus just took an awful angle, which is so uncharacteristic of him. To me, that's fluky. We got a comment. The comments are popping off. Chris Thompson again couldn't find an instance in NFL history where two teams in the same division faced off in the final week of the season, with the winner becoming the number one seed in the conference. No, but it's plenty of times where it's where we've had a division settled. So it'll be interesting. I think that's an interesting one.
This time it could be the division and the conference, both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which may be a historic first.
Yeah. Before we get back to the Seahawks, do you want to hear something funny?
Sure.
So Michael Penix Jr. was obviously named the starter of the Atlanta Falcons yesterday. Kirk Cousins got benched, which very funny.
Yeah, we broke that news last night on Scolders and Spice. It was wonderful.
Mm-hmm. he was about to buy a hot dog at Costco when he got the news and then didn't buy the hot dog anymore.
Really? He couldn't afford the $1.75 or whatever a Costco hot dog costs? It's dirt cheap. No, it's a good hot dog.
No. He said he wasn't hungry anymore after hearing the news. He's got plenty of money.
Oh, it's not a money $300 and some odd $1 million he made. Penix? 341 or whatever it is.
No, Dave. It's Penix that said no to the hot dog, not Cousins.
Oh, okay.
Penix still has millions because of the signing bonus and stuff that he just got.
First round draft pick. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought that anecdote was really funny. But offensive. Oh, he's gonna be just fine. Yeah. Offensively, the Minnesota Vikings need to attack. Defensively, the biggest thing is going to be also attack. Geno Smith, I believe, is going to play. He was a full participant in practice. I don't see him not playing. And because of that, I'm not going to even entertain the idea that it could be Sam Howell. It's going to be Geno Smith. But Geno Smith injured his knee. How injured is that knee? Are we talking Jordan Love week 4? Where Love probably came back 1 week too early? If it's that, oh my gosh, the Vikings defense is going to have a field day with simulated pressures and blitzing. That is going to be incredibly fun to watch because Brian Flores does a great job of attacking quarterbacks. He does a great job of confusing them with all these exotic looks, showing cover 0 and then dropping back into drop 8 Tampa 2. He's going to have a field day with Geno because he's going to just try and pressure. This might be where you see the return of Bengal Hawk. The blitz package that the Vikings used last year, where it's a 0 look, and then whatever way the center turns, those guys drop, and then it's an overload to the other side. That might be what happens here. I think you have to try and pressure up the middle. You have to explode. You have to put so much pressure on those interior guys that they start to crumble. I think that's going to be the biggest key to the game because they're not going to be able to run the football with how good this Vikings run defense has been. Yeah, they've allowed 150-ish yards almost to the Atlanta Falcons, less than 5 yards a carry. They also couldn't really throw the ball very well. Yards don't matter to this defense. It's not about the yards, Dave. It's about what the yards represent. Straight up, that's what it's about. And I'm really intrigued to see how everything will manifest itself here, how we're going to potentially have this, that, or the other thing. I think this Minnesota Vikings squad could be in a really interesting space moving forward. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
This is
T-Bass,
the Seahawks.
Why the hatred? I've been clear since when he came to the team how I feel about Kirk Cousins because I lived in Virginia and watched him play for the Redskins. Way back when I was podcasting with Ted and Drew. I don't know if it's hatred. It's just you got to give it to his agent. He's got a Hall of Fame agent. So, but if this ends his career, it's a shame it didn't go out any better.
Yeah. So big thing with the Kirk Cousins thing, he kind of has brought some of that on himself with kind of his answers, the talking look, players need days off, but you have to have enough self-awareness to not say, hey, I take every Tuesday off. Just don't say it publicly, man. You can be yeah, I just work from home on Tuesday. You have to have a better answer to that. And he even says, yeah, I watched some film. But then right before that, you straight up said, I don't work Tuesdays. Watching film, you're still putting in some work. You just have to frame it better. And the plexiglass when it came to the whole COVID-19 thing and he has just rubbed so many in this fan base the wrong way. Plus, he's getting paid at the time. Initially, he was getting paid the most money of any quarterback in the National Football League for about 3 weeks. And then Matt Ryan got his extension. But because of some of those elements with Kirk, where he just did not deliver what he was brought here to do, he was brought here to be a mercenary for the Super Bowl. And some people decided they were going to do nothing but defend him. Nothing was ever his fault. Some people took a realistic approach, which is what I think we've always done. We've praised him when he deserves it. We have criticized him when he's earned it. And then there's some who just think he can never, ever do anything right, and he's just scum. He's just been a very polarizing player.
Mm-hmm. And they're comparing to Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson had some polarizing moments, especially when he took the switch. But Adrian Peterson, there's good memories of Adrian as well. So, and yes, we did pay him a lot, T-Bass. At the time, I think we made him the highest paid running back in the league.
Yeah, we did.
And he spent it all plus more.
Don't forget the camel birthday party.
As Kirk was.
No, absolutely not.
And it's part of its personality.
Part of it is context, because Adrian Peterson was drafted. He was an all-pro, I believe, as a rookie. He set NFL records as a rookie, one that still stands today, 296 rushing yards against the Chargers, which could have been like 350 if it weren't for a horse collar. That's the wild thing, because he almost, like, he took a run play at the end of the game, and a guy horse collared him blatantly, and that's the only reason why he didn't end up having even more. Now, he was able to actually break the record, which was awesome. But, yeah, just it could have been way over 300, which would have just been insane. But that context, Kirk was a free agent signing. He was brought in as a mercenary. He was not one of us. He was adopted. He did not become one of us immediately. And I think some of those are the reasons why he's just so divisive. And quite frankly, I just don't care enough about Kirk Cousins. He's gone. I'm glad the Vikings chose to move on. All the evidence keeps pointing to it was 100% the right decision to move on. And it's because of that Achilles tendon. He just doesn't have it anymore. And I feel bad for him. He seems like a genuinely good person. But Father Time comes for us all. And it came for Kirk. And I think that's honestly the long and the short of it.
Concur.
Yeah. Seahawks game, the line I saw drop down to Vikings by 3.5 when it opened at 4.5. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. It's going to be 49 with like a decent chance of rain in Seattle on Sunday afternoon, which it is a 3:05 game. It was not flexed. I'm really intrigued by this game, Dave. I think it could be really good. I think the Vikings are in a good position to be able to get the win. I think they can take advantage of the biggest weaknesses of the Seahawks, and I'm really, really intrigued to see how the Seahawks try to combat some of the blitzes that Brian Flores is going to attack with. I will recommend, if you want more context on the Seahawks, my former boss, Corbin Smith, who is the publisher of the Sports Illustrated All Seahawks, he also hosts Locked On Seahawks, and he's going to be an excellent resource for you if you want to go learn about the Seahawks. He'll do a crossover with friend of the show, Luke Braun, tomorrow. He's going to be great if you want to just understand what's going on in Seattle. He's got boots on the ground, and he's one of the best in the business. So I recommend you go listen to his show and read his stuff, and you'll be able to get a lot better sense of what's going on with the Birds. Dave, as we kind of move forward here, any questions that you can think of that we should kind of address here before we end up signing off here for the night?
This is an outdoor game. The weather forecast is supposed to be 50s something, and on and off rain. Do you think that's going to affect how the offense and the defense plays?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll affect it somewhat, but I don't think it's going to affect it to this massive point. I think that they're going to have to adjust with some of the rainy conditions, but because it's going to be 49, like it's not going to be where, oh, it's raining and super, super cold. I think you're going to have to lean a little bit more on the running game, which is fine. This could be the last outdoor game the Minnesota Vikings play, and they avoided any super cold weather games, which is awesome. They didn't have to play the Bears in December. They didn't have to play the Packers on the road in December. Their 2 road games at the end of the year are Seattle, which is going to be semi-warmish, and Detroit, who has a dome.
I think that's awesome. If it's moist and rainy and 50, 49, it's cold. But anyways, it's not frigid. It's not 5 below zero cold, but it's cold because it soaks through.
I think that the jerseys are like dry fit, so like the water beads and doesn't absorb. I think. But even so, you're still going to be able to get some inside the pads and stuff. Look,
now I do have a question for you. What do you think of Dallas Turner so far? Is he developing like you would like to see?
Here's my big thing with Dallas Turner. Everybody needs to shut up. Like, there's nothing to panic about. There's nothing to be worried about. He's a rookie who was buried on a depth chart because the defensive line is playing extremely well, and he's getting more snaps because he's earning them. Like, I wasn't worried when he was getting 3 snaps against the Titans. Andrew Van Ginkel's playing at like an all-pro kind of level. And if Andrew Van Ginkel's playing that well and Dallas Turner is playing that role, why are you taking Andrew Van Ginkel off the field? Why are you taking Grenard off the field? He's not going to do the Pat Jones or Jihad Ward roles. So what are you going to do? You keep him out. It's not insulting to him. It's more of a compliment to the other guys. And he's starting to try and figure it out. He's starting to, like, the ghost move that he put on Darnell Wright. That was a flash of this dude can be real special. Everybody knows I want to chop Robinson. I'm not changing that opinion. I want to chop. We have Dallas, and I'm glad we have Dallas because I think he is a good player. He's got a ton of talent. But people have this expectation about rookies because of what Justin Jefferson did, what Russell Wilson did, what CJ Stroud did, what Jamar Chase did. No, he's a rookie. There's going to be a development curve. He needed to bulk up and have real NFL play strength. He's going to be fine. I'm not worried about him at all. Like, if we're having issues in year 2 and year 3, sure. But I think we've seen enough positive stuff from Turner where it's like, okay, this rocks. This is good. Let's go.
And especially knowing he's not physically mature yet, and he's still got room to grow and will grow. That's going to be, he's good now at what he did. That move, the dip move, absolutely was beautiful. And to know if he puts on 20 more pounds, 30 more pounds, gets bigger, gets faster, as his body fills in, it's going to be even better.
It's going to rock, Dave. It's going to rock. It's going to be awesome. But yeah, I'm not worried about Turner at all. And I think people have unrealistic expectations about rookies because we've seen some rookies just come in and be special. Adrian Peterson's another one. It's okay that they're not great right away. And like Freedom Thinker 1984 says, he's only 21. Like, exactly. He was like the second youngest player in this draft class. It's okay.
Yeah.
If we're having, and you know what? I said the same things about Booth and Scene. And unfortunately, Booth and Scene's third year this year proved that year 1 and year 2 were not a mirage. And there was not enough growth to even come close to end up being like justifying those picks. But you have to wait until year 3 to really make a full determination because it's an adjustment coming from the college game. They only get 20 hours a week with you in the college game. NFL, you're in that facility like 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week on top of playing games, on top of your film study, on top of trying to have a family. It's a different kind of world. Plus, it's a different kind of grown man. So I'm not worried. No reason to panic. It's okay. It is okay, Dave.
Just curious. And we're deep. And we're going to have Van Ginkel and Grenard next year. So he's still not getting starter reps. So it's time for him to develop into those replacements eventually.
I do think with the kind of Van Ginkel and Grenard coming back next year, I do think as he continues to grow and get that strength, because that's why he's not playing the Pat Jones role. Like Jihad Ward's like almost 290. That's why he's the only one doing that role. But I think if you get him a little bit more core strength, which you can do throughout the season, and then really have him, he came out at 247, get him up to 255 and just get it all in his ass and just give him that power, because he's got speed to power, but give him real power, standing power. That's going to be the next evolution.
Speed, move. Now, you said Jihad Ward, and I still see that hit into Caleb Williams' chest.
How perfect was that hit? Not only was it a hard hit, it was he turned his head, shoulder into chest, landed right next to him. That is how you play modern day football. Yeah, look, Steve Atwater's a top 5 favorite player of all time for me. I love watching Steve Atwater just destroy people. And but you remember the second to last offensive play for the Packers, he knocked himself out, the receiver, and his teammate all in one. Like, I'm okay that doesn't happen anymore. So these guys don't potentially develop CTE, or they don't develop it as fast because you're trying to take some of that out of the game. I can live with that. But good Lord, do I love some Steve Atwater compilation hits, man. They bring the boom and it rocks.
Well, that hit by Jihad Ward, that took any life out of Caleb Williams. After that game, he was done. But that was brilliant. And it was a perfect hit. Just beautiful.
Big time. Big time beautiful. Dave, I think that's going to...
agrees. Steve Waters was an awesome one of his favorite NFL players, non-Vikings.
And he's in the Hall of Fame. God bless America. Him and Leroy Butler. The fact that it took them both that long to get in the Hall makes me mad. Like, Leroy Butler, he may have been a Packer. That dude ruled. That dude was one of the best safeties in the National Football League, and he made our lives a living hell. That dude should have been in the Hall like 10 years earlier. But he did get in, and that's what matters. And Fig Nuts makes a good point. We're going to leave it at that. Let Turner grow. It took Everson Griffin 3 years. It took Everson Griffin until year 5 to actually burst out as an edge rusher. So remember, they were doing gimmicky stuff with him. Like, he was a punt gunner. And then they had to decide, okay, well, he's a free agent. Do we pay him without him having produced? Gave him a 5-year deal worth $40 million, which at the time was like huge money. And Danielle Hunter started flashing as a rookie. And then once year 3 hit, he was Danielle Hunter. Give him time. He doesn't need 6 years, but next year, I think you're going to see more of a breakout. That's going to be our show, Dave. The Seattle Seahawks game is going to be a fascinating one for us to watch. And I'm really intrigued to see how they end up handling it, because it's a hard place to play in Seattle. The weather could end up being a factor, but you have to exploit that offensive line. That's number one. If you don't exploit that offensive line, I think they're in trouble. I think they're in big trouble. I do. And you know what? That's not gonna help.
They'll exploit it. I have no doubts.
Yeah.
Now, scheduling.
Chris is
coming up. Tomorrow we have a Scolders and Spice. What exact time, I don't know. Make sure you keep your notification on. You'll find out. 2 old bloggers this week will be Friday night. Still don't have a time determined, but it'll be Friday night.
So Darren decides he's only going to show up on Friday night now.
No, he has to travel down to Manitoba to spend the holidays with the in-laws. So he'll be on the road all day Saturday. So we're going to make it Friday night. Rather than you get me solo, which is fine, we're going to do it both together on Friday night. Hopefully I'll have all the graphics done and ready by then.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. And we will have a show on Monday. We will not have a show on Christmas Day.
Well, we'll have the post game on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. I'm just talking real Forno show. Maybe we'll have something Thursday. Dave and you and I will have to kind of coordinate to see what we can accomplish through because Monday, it is an odd placement of Christmas.
Will be the real Forno show. Tuesday will be Sculptures and Spice, and it'll be the Vikings First and SKOL Christmas episode. Wednesday, we're taking off because it's Christmas. And then Thursday, we'll talk about who you get to see and when.
Mm-hmm. Bingo, bango, bongo.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, 1 week till Christmas, 3 weeks until the Minnesota Vikings are hopefully the first seed in the playoffs. They got into the playoffs because the Packers beat the Seahawks last week. And all you need is a ticket to the dance to be able to win the prize. You can't win the Super Bowl from the outside looking in. Vikings are in. So anything is possible. Anything is possible. Don't forget that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am Tyler. He is Dave. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!